global headwinds, inflation, rising interest rates, and generally an era of uncertainty, which we discussed even in the previous session. But now we have two very well-known industrialists with us to give us a sense of essentially where this coming year and beyond is going to, what it's going to look like. There is the first, milestone is on February 1, which is the last full budget before general elections. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And of course, beyond that, in terms of what the economy is looking like, what are the headwinds essentially which we see, and how India Inc. and the Indian economy can sort of overcome some of those. So I'll start first with Mr. Hiranandani to give us a broad sense of where you see 2023. We've already talked about, there is a lot of discussion around a possible rebound in China after the last year, and also, of course, global recessionary challenges coming up. In a sector like yours in particular, and in general, as one of the country's foremost industrialists, what do you see as 2023 looking like?
Thank you. It looks very exciting to me. I think it's very positive too. Look at the numbers that float around. 6.2% as compared to any other Western country, which looks very sad and downwards. The challenges which you see in Europe with the Russia-Ukraine war, where you see a lot of difficulty there. I think overall the sensitivity of the West, which has now almost removed 100,000 people from their jobs as a cumulative number. Somebody said it's 50,000, but even 50,000 for the US in one shot is pretty high. I think all these things definitely indicate an international challenge for all of us across the globe. However, we're seeing some differences in India with the demographics that we have, with the kind of thought process that we have put in terms of geopolitics. I think we have had several wins. Number one win, we were able to get petroleum and gas from Russia. It saved us 35,000 crores as an upfront amount, which would have bought from the open market. I think that made a world of a difference that happened. We have been able to see that our markets itself have remained high internally, both in terms of the stock markets and the other markets in terms of it. Real estate volumes have grown between 15 and 20%, depending on the type of sector that you're looking at. So all in all, we have seen a growth path which has been unprecedented, so in spite of that. And this is in spite of the fact that interest rates have gone up. Home loans have gone up from 6.5% to 8.2% on an average. So obviously, those are the headwinds that you talked about. But in spite of that, home finance has gone up 20% across the board. So that's a win that you see blowing in the thing. Second, we thought that COVID would be a negative to home buying. It's been the reverse. People have actually gone in for homes and home loans. In fact, 22 has seen the first time in my career that I've seen that the upper segment of homes has grown faster than the affordable segment. Though, of course, the affordable segment is a much larger segment as the total. But even then, this thing has never happened before, that the growth of the higher segment has grown faster. All these things put together shows us that we've been able to be resilient to the international move, and one of those times where we haven't seen it. As far as tech is concerned, there is a huge concern, and I think that the market sensitivity is also indicating that. However, there are contrarian views, and this is what I would like more than anything else. The contrarian view says really that the moment the West has a problem, they want to offshore more work, because of the cost arbitrage. And if that is happening, then I think we won't have a problem in the tech sector as much as we would do it. Infra has grown hugely. And that is with 35 kilometers of national highways per day, and the inauguration in Mumbai by the Prime Minister and do it. I think we are seeing a different India completely, more resilient, more there, 6.2%, very positive growth. I'm looking at 2023 with a very positive angle. Yes, I do believe that the budget is going to be very critical for us. We are hoping that in this budget, 1 year before the final budget, which would come next year before the elections, we would be able to see a further positive impact on investments, because that is something which is very badly needed. I know the government is investing. Disinvestment, according to me, has been too slow. I think a faster disinvestment would have definitely helped the market, and the money being used for the purposes of putting up further infrastructure, airports, roads, waterways, ports, all these things put together. There's one number which I want to put down across to you. The logistic costs in India is around 13%. So anything that you buy, 13% is the cost of logistics. Contrary to that, the logistic cost in China is close to 7%. So we have a 6%, China has an arbitrage for every item of goods that it exports or supplies to the local customer. With the national highways, with roads, with transport, airports, all this, if we can bring this 13 down to less than 10 in the next 2 years, that itself will be a 2% GDP growth, which will be added to the economy simply because of investments into the infrastructure. Yeah. So very positive.
That's clearly the government's objective also in terms of logistics, like you rightly said. We'll come to details a little bit of the budget a little later. Mr. Piramal, you are in a business which is directly related to the consumer in that sense. What is the sense you get? We talk about India, the domestic market being one of the key strengths, which will sort of tide us through these challenges which are global. What is your sense, and how do you see, the kind of headwinds and the kind of way in which we can sort of tide over those challenges, banking on the domestic market?
I am a confirmed optimist, and I have been saying since '92, since the reform started, that there is only one way that India can go, and that is upwards. But I would say now, for the first time in the last 5 years, 6 years since this government has come, that we have never seen an India in this light, and what we have experienced in the last 5 years. And particularly with China now on the decline. China is, people sort of say China economy is finished and all, but that's all rubbish. China is the second largest economy in the world, about 6 times the size of India. So even if China grows at 3% and India grows at 6%, the overall input they have, the growth is much more than what happens in India. But nevertheless, China is on the decline, which is a big change for India, and we are getting that advantage. We have never seen that normally when such a large country, large economy like China goes down, it has an impact on the world because demand goes down. There's such a big part of the buying and selling. But for India, I think it's an advantage because we are mainly buying from China. So we should get things at a slightly cheaper price. Our main imports are either consumer goods from China, consumer and industrial goods from China, and of course, crude oil. So if China demand goes down, then crude oil also relatively it has an impact. And of course, at the moment, even Europe and all are under strain. So this sort of juxtaposition of India with the rest of the world is their problems are not really affecting us so adversely, I feel. But in fact, it is to our advantage. We can take advantage, and especially the low manufacturing industries. I'm in the luggage manufacturing, which is one of probably the smallest category of anything. But even there, China was the world's capital of manufacturing luggage, like so many other consumer goods. unfortunately, I mean, it's a very labor-intensive industry, but all the once consumer imports were allowed. I mean, a lot of people don't remember that consumer imports were totally banned into India up to the year 2001. So we had to make everything what we sold in India. And so after that, after the imports were relaxed, and now in the initial period, the duties were about 85%, but very soon, within 4 or 5 years, they came down to 10%, which I think was very anti-Indian. I mean, though it benefited me personally, but I was dead against it. That, I mean, it was really killing Indian industry. But anyway, so now luggage manufacture is taking place in India. We have set up a very large factory in Bangladesh for soft luggage because India is still not as competitive as Bangladesh. You know, in India manufacturing, unfortunately, at the lowest end, low wage goods, is very poor because our wages are still very high. The minimum wage is about 18,000 rupees, whereas this industry, most industries at that level, which are not technically, which are sort of labor intensive, would sort of fair wage would be about 10,000, 12,000, which most Indians are not even earning that much in the unorganized sector. So coming back to the consumer goods, that the outlook is very good. I mean, especially like I'm in a very extreme industry, which is very badly affected by the COVID. I mean, for the first year, our business was zero because I make luggage, which is dependent on the travel, So that was virtually nothing. And in fact, now there is a rebound and people are doing that revenge traveling and all that. But then again, we are having a problem because Chinese supplies are not there. And there's a problem of supply. So we're not able to meet, just like the hotels and all, and the occupancy is complete. Even airlines are absolutely running at more than 90% occupancy, which is which means that there are a lot of rejections. A lot of times people don't get tickets. Prices are high. And same thing for hotels. But overall, the outlook is very good for the consumer industry. And I think there are very few, there are some problems, but not too many.
Interesting, Mr. Piramal, that you talked about manufacturing and how India is still not competitive in that sense with even countries like Bangladesh. But let me come then to the whole idea of PLI, which is being seen as a game changer in many cases. I will ask both of you this question, and I'll start with Mr. Hiranandani. PLI is being seen as the government as a game-changing policy. A lot of industry does seem to agree with it. But there is a section which also believes that is there genuine value addition happening in PLI, for instance. Now we talk about electronics having been a major gainer, but that's one. Now there is a view that MSMEs particularly need more help. So, and it's a form of subsidy. So, which is again not a great thing to do. So where do you see the whole PLI debate, and do you think it's really benefiting and can change the game for manufacturing in India?
Was needed. I think it was required. I think it sent the right signals through the world that India wanted to get into the manufacturing side. And actually it has made a difference because all the other. Number two, the states have gone into competition of trying to see that they come to their particular state. And I think it will be absolutely imperative. The next stage of this is, I think, more interesting to see. For example, the semiconductor side. And I think that is going to make a world of a change in terms of how we get into that industry. So very positive, PLI is working and it's definitely making a difference. Yes, there is a contrarian view. I can even give that contrarian view to you. I can share that with you. We don't see that the investment in PLIs are necessarily in terms of employment generation. So we have a lot of other sectors where we see that if investments came in those sectors, we would get much, much more employment per rupee of subsidy you gave. So for instance, let's take the real estate industry. The number of people employed as a multiplier to the manufacturing industry is only 100 times more per rupee of person or per lakh of people. You'll have 100 times more people employed than a factory. And in the good old days, if you had an automobile manufacturing plant, on an average, you'd get 5,000 workers. Today, it's fully automated. You'll get 500 workers. But in a construction, real estate, infrastructure project, you will still get 5,000 workers who are getting it. So it's an employment. So like textiles, tourism, real estate, these are the sectors, infrastructure. In these sectors, the employment is higher. So I think a rupee subsidy there would give you much bigger employment. I'm not against the PLI, I'm for it. But what I'm saying is that they need to equally bounce off that the benefits to be given to other sectors where the employment generation is more, and I think that focus is required. So if you give some small benefits in the real estate sector, for instance, the number of people who would be gainfully employed is going to just increase beyond imagination. And I think that is the kind of, or tourism, for instance, that also I think is a multiplier effect which is unimaginable. We have more tourism tourists going to Dubai than the whole of India. And that's just one city, state. So, and can you imagine the possibilities in India that we have with the number of airports, destination, religious tourism, destination, sun, sea, Himalayas, all the other things combined? I think there are so many sectors which equally require help in terms of it, which are employment generating.
Mr. Piramal, your sense of PLI, since you spoke about
I think, let me also add, let me expand on the changes that are happening in the last 5 years. I don't want to I'm not at all negative about the manufacturing industry. The only area where manufacturing really suffers and is probably, I don't see any solution to that, is in the low-wage goods industry, because India is a democracy and I don't see any government changing that policy, and there is too much of pressure. So, but today what has happened is that we are at the bottom of the pit as far as any manufacturing country goes. I mean, there are a lot of African countries which are poorer than us, where the wages might be lower, but they don't have that sort of infrastructure. So if you really go into a manufacturing scenario, you see which are the countries which will compete with us in this low-wage goods sector. Is Bangladesh, Vietnam. Indonesia per capita income is over nearly $3,500, nearly double of ours, slightly less than double. So Indonesia also is in a different league. So there are very few countries, but that is one area where I feel with such a large population, we still, when things went to China, China was poorer than India or as much as India, and look at what they have done, but they are not a democracy, so they can rule that. So PLI is very good. And there is, in fact, I was watching one debate on television where I got some input that the opposition was saying that government has spent so much on subsidies and all that, whereas the government spokesman said that whatever we have spent on subsidies, in 1 year we will earn more than that by taxes and all, even on this Apple and some other things. So there are, and in the beginning you have to subsidize, you have to help. Look at China. How do you think China has grown so much? Because their infrastructure is done at a very low cost, and the amount of money they've spent on infrastructure, why this logistic cost is so low? Because all that investment has been made by the government.
So we are running out of time to both the panelists. I just want to round off this discussion by, in 1 minute, since the budget is upon us, tell me 2 things which you would like the budget to do immediately, so that we get back to the growth path in right earnest. Mr. Hiranandani first.
And the highest marginal rate of tax is on an individual at 42%. It's grossly unfair. So if I'm a sole proprietor, I must become a partnership to make it 35%, and I must make it a limited company to be 25%. I think this arbitrage is too high. I think it needs to be corrected. Number 2, you need to focus on things like home loans. You have had the tax deduction at 2 lakhs of rupees 12 years ago. The prices have gone up, and obviously this standard deduction needs to be done, and people are buying, young people, middle-aged, older people, retired people are buying, needs to go up to at least 5 lakhs of rupees in order to make that. And the loan to value, which is 65%, 70% for normal loans, and affordable segment 90%, and the margin between affordable is only 45 lakhs. In Mumbai, you can't get anything at 45 lakhs. I think that loan to value through the RBI, through the central government, I think needs this change. If these things change, the multiplier effect in the economy is huge. And the unfairness of 42% is unbelievable. And nobody is talking about it.
Mr. Piramal, your two wish lists.
I fully agree with what Niranjan is saying about the 42%, but I don't think there's any chance in this political scenario. Today you have all these foreign think tanks saying that the rich are becoming richer and the poor are not going anywhere. They say the poor are getting poorer, but which I don't think is correct. But poorer also in India are improving. But one has to live with that. And I would like it if the rate comes down, but I don't see anything. And I think the budget has become a non-event, which is very good. You cannot have reforms every year. You have a tax rate of 25% and manufacturing is even lower than that. So I think, in fact, I don't even bother. Today there's not all that old excitement. Earlier, 30 years ago, they'd scrap one policy, change the name of development repair to investment allowance, and again bring the same old thing. It was all rubbish, So now we have a settled thing. It's like the West. I was a frequent visitor to London, and I was there once on the budget day, and nobody was even aware that the budget has come. It's like one of the routine things, which is a good thing, I feel.
But in India, it's still far away.
Because we are not got out of that habit. But what's happening? There's nothing new. There's no changes in the tax rates or. They're very marginal rates, and then there are all these development activities, but there's nothing substantial, which is very good. You can't go on now. GST also. Yeah. Of course, GST is not part of the budget, but you can't go on changing in fact, most of the industrial policies are nowadays outside the budget,
Yes, that's true. So we'll see what the FM does on February 1 and whether it is substantive or it is just one of those things. Thank you very much for your views, and we've just run completely out of time. Thank you very much for being with us.
That was a real express session.